when you get really serious about change. Finally got fed up and got really serious about making a change. What happened for you? Your attitude, your focus, the words you were using, the directions you took, the actions you made. Like, think about that. When you finally get fed up and get ready to move, you shift to thinking more about what you want. You begin to realize what it was, and you can begin to feel the possibilities and imagine the results. That's how you know you finally hit that point where you can turn. I was recently informed that 96% of all people watching, that means you, are not actual subscribers to the channel. So take a second and hit subscribe.
Welcome to the Point with Jeff Spikes, the show about achieving goals, embracing growth, and finding your true path. And now, here's your host, Jeff Spikes.
Hello and welcome to The Point. You are in a great position today to take a continuation of gratitude, as in gratitude is one of the best topics we could ever talk about in the world. And you can be full of gratitude and make life much easier and more effortless than you ever imagined. And today, you got to hear about this last week, but it was a little different. Today, you're going to get an opportunity to pay attention to how the science connects to gratitude. So I'm going to make some references to other people and, really connect gratitude to the science from sources that are reputable. Another is I'm going to deliver an amazing point for you. Like, you are going to have a point made specific to you about this and how this works and how change can be made easy. And then at the end of this, you're going to have what I'm looking at what I've got prepared here. And a lot of the times you'll hear more of a relaxed me just speaking, just relaxed form of speaking from my free thought. This time I've put some notes down to make sure that certain points are really covered and delivered. So I may be looking at my notes from time to time. But you're going to get, I believe it's 6 points, and maybe it's five points that are key steps that you can take, that you can practice, that will guarantee, that will deliver an easier transition through change if you practice them and if you actually walk through these steps and perform the steps. And possibly next week, there's a topic where we're going to dig into at least one of those. We might have a week or two where you get to dig in, and that's going to be up to you. You get to choose what we do next week and the week after based on what comments you've made and what you ask for. And you're also going to have the opportunity to receive something that we're going to give you if you ask for it. And that's really it. If you're looking for, and it's in the form of a gratitude worksheet and journal that you can keep, that absolutely delivers a gratitude practice that matches the science that everyone's talking about. Now, I want to start by saying I typically don't go with the science. I go with experience, and I share with you from a position of having experienced these things and listened to and tried things and tested things and then proven them and then worked with others to do the same and add more proof. And we're going to talk about that as well as we keep going, but let's start with the science. I'm going to read a couple of things that Huberman says. If no one knows who Dr. Andrew Huberman is from Stanford University, he has some very impactful, extremely profound, and really well thought out, scientifically backed podcast episodes that really dig into many topics that we want to talk about here, and that many people want, that you want to hear. You want to hear when you're wanting to optimize yourself, and you want to pay attention to that. For me, sometimes they're so long, I have to set aside time and really listen and pay attention to bits and summarize them because it can go really deep into it. I'm more of an experiential learner, and I'd rather experience it and test it and work with others. So, but I love some of the value that Dr. Huberman brings. So, a couple of things that he says that you've heard me talk about and we've talked about all along, which is that he calls it ineffectiveness of common practices, right? Many commonly used gratitude practices like gratitude lists are often ineffective. He talks about the resource of where he gets that from, but we've been saying that for a while, that you can take the long road of gratitude and just write a gratitude list of 3 things, and 3 things a day for 30 days, especially if you don't repeat them, and has been practiced by many and does give us a physiological change after about 30 days. But the point I think that we're talking about is that a gratitude practice does something much different. So he also talks about the importance of the narrative, and that the effective gratitude practices require a story or a narrative. Receiving versus giving, the practice is way more effective when you focus on receiving or perceiving gratitude rather than just giving it. So we talk about, you've learned here how to receive the gratitude and feel it and experience it, but then also how to make it more visceral by sharing it with others, which increases the experience. So where you're giving and receiving at one time. So we're really intensifying gratitude in the practices that we do here. Now, another one is that he has here is that it's a theory of mind. Understanding, emphasizing with others' experiences is crucial. Then there's neural mechanisms. Effective gratitude practices actually do reduce fear, increase motivation, and lower inflammatory chemicals in the body, right? So gratitude, we've talked about. Joe Dispenza will say that gratitude is one of the base elements of getting yourself into a state where your body can more effectively heal itself. Well, there you go. It naturally lowers the inflammatory chemicals in the body. So it has an intense effect, right? Done well. Another is he talks about immediate benefits. Unlike other practices, the positive effects of gratitude can be felt almost instantly. So here's some steps he talks about for practice. Think about a story where someone received help. Write notes about the struggle, the help, and the emotions involved, and reflect on the story for a few minutes several times a week. Psychological benefits. Regular gratitude practices can shift emotional connectivity, reduce anxiety and fear, and enhance social relationships. So he's saying the same thing that we have all along. The idea is, my dad raised me, and he always said gratitude is the foe of all evil. That was a statement that was regularly repeated in our household, and he just loved saying it. Gratitude is the foe of all evil. No matter what challenge was being faced, no matter what difficulty was in front of you, there was always a message or a talk or a consideration of what are you grateful for, and how do you move forward in a grateful state, because being in a grateful state helps. We're going to do another step of connecting this to science as well by talking about something Joe Dispenza says. And just to be clear, this started because of a recording of a YouTube video I saw of Dr. Joe Dispenza, where he said something that just caught my attention, and I stopped it and wrote it down because it stated something I've said before in such a clear way, and I really liked how he said it. So I just wanted to share it with you. And this is me just writing down it might be paraphrased because I was writing it down, and this is the best I could do to write it down. I'm pretty sure it's as accurate. It's as accurate as I could make it in that process. So Joe Dispenza said, how you think and how you feel is what creates your state of mind. Okay, so he says, how you think and how you feel is what creates your state of mind. If you believe your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, and you can't think greater than how you feel, your feelings have become your means of thinking. By the very definition of emotions, you're then thinking in the past. Okay? And for the most part, you keep recreating the same life. So that caught my attention so strongly because we talk a lot here about how not to carry forward things from the past and how to release ourselves from the painful reoccurrence of how we think. So if you're sitting thinking about the past in a way of negative emotions and unresourceful emotions, and you keep bringing forward the story, even if it's from last week of something that upset you, and you continue to rehearse and run over and reel back into the story in a way that re-aggravates the emotions you had, One of the things that you can call that is case building, and where you're actually spending time trying to rationalize, justify, and build the case into a stronger sense of belief that you're right, or that that's what happened, and that it was an injustice, or whatever it is you want to say. But no matter how far back you go, you could think about how you hated being served a certain vegetable on your plate when you were a child, and how it made you feel every time that you were served that, and how you cried about it or argued about it or said you didn't want to eat it and had to eat it anyway and felt punished and everything it's done to you. If you keep telling these stories to yourself and attach to the emotion, what do you think you are pulling forward into your life? Right? So I love that part of it where he said your feelings have become your means of thinking, and you can't think greater than how you feel. So if you believe your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, and you can't think greater than how you feel, how many times do you find that your thinking is mandated by the feeling? You get this intense feeling, and then you're not coming off the ledge of the thoughts until you do something really intentional to disrupt the pattern that you're in and do something different. And it doesn't matter what level of success you're in when this is happening. This happens to everyone. So many people at every rung of and ladder of society are oftentimes performing from a place of a successful teenager, and maybe not always a successful one, sometimes an angry or bitter one, or a hurt teenager. There's many things written about how the average age of most of us in a boardroom or in Congress or in anywhere else is that of a 14-year-old as far as our emotional intelligence when we get triggered. Knowing that this is a human condition of something that we go through, this has to do with how we pull from the past in our memories. So the keys to this in having a solid gratitude practice is one of the keys to that is to disconnect those things and to think in history from a different angle of finding the lessons that you learned from those situations rather than the emotions. Because you've heard me say before that emotions are basically messengers. We're meant to learn something from them. So you glean what you're meant to learn. You download and understand what you're meant to learn from those lessons. Then you can shift your focus. And we're going to get into that here in a minute. Couple other things about this that are really intriguing that are great for you to think about. And that, most people are living in an unconscious body-mind program. Joe Dispenza said that 5% of your available conscious mind, right? You can say with the 5% of your available unconscious mind that you want to be fit, you want to be thin, you want to drink less, or you want to be able to control something more, you want to be wealthy, you want to have an improved marriage, better relationships. You could say those things with that limited part of your conscious mind all you want. But if you're running a program that is rooted in years of the same practices and behaviors of how you get up, how you get out of bed, the first things you say to yourself, all these things, and how you show up in your office or in your car, all the things you do that end up automating the body-mind behaviors, then you can say those things all day long. The key, and nothing will change. Patterns get to change when you change your thoughts. The analytical mind does not have the keys to change. It's the analytical mind. One of the episodes early on in this, I shared with you this idea that the critical mind, the analytical mind, needs a job, right? We don't have T-Rex to worry about anymore. We don't have pterodactyls. We're not fighting off bears and living out in the jungle or whatever, in the forest. We don't have the same predators. The predatorial environment has changed. So we're not in a place of needing to live in this totally critical zone of constantly looking for these types of fight or flight dangers. What we do have is the need to be at peace in the moment, and we need to get the best way for you to work through this, for anyone to work through this, is to find your own way. Find your own way to navigate and direct and give your analytical, critical mind a job. And there's many amazing jobs that you can give that. And we can go back and refresh that topic if that becomes important to you, and you can share that with me if you want to dig into that deeper. The body mind and the unconscious mind is where automations are created. Okay, the body mind connection, where you find in meditation, where you find in quiet moments, where you find in reflection or visualization, right? And reflection is meant to be positive. Reflection is meant to be, again, on the lessons we've learned from things, reflecting on what we can pull forward that we agree with, that's positive. Intentional repetition is a simple way to guarantee that you can change the programming. But there's also other ways to do that. So something Joe Dispenza had said was that from his studies, most of the people, by the time they're 35, are running in an unconscious program that is anchored deep enough that they're not necessarily aware of it. Notice something. Here's my encouragement. Notice something. When you get really serious about change, think of a time that you finally got fed up and got really serious about making a change, and you just said, and what happened for you? What happened inside your mind? What was the experience you were having with your thoughts, your attitude, your focus, the words you were using, the directions you took, the actions you made? Like, think about that. You shift to thinking more about what you want. You shift from thinking about what you weren't having. When you finally get fed up and get ready to move, you shift to thinking more about what you want. In that thought process, you begin to realize what it was, and you can begin to feel the possibilities and imagine the results. That's how you know you finally hit that point where you can turn. Now, if you're still motivated more by what you don't want, that could take longer and longer and longer as you build your resistance and your resilience. So it's important for you to be cautious about what you're building, right? What are you building in how you're setting your intentions? Because and making sure you're not just leaning on the motivation of what you don't want. Because if you're only motivated by what you don't want gets worse, and then you get used to that, and it gets worse, and you get used to that. So we want to build and practice this idea of what you do want, and being motivated by what you do want, and creating the motivation of what you do want. Again, we're talking on gratitude. When you're sitting in a place of gratitude, these things are readily accessible. When you're in a place of gratitude, when you're really in a solid practice, there's a flow state you're immediately connected to, where, especially if you're able to be grateful for something that you know is going to happen. There's some great examples of that right now. That there was a couple in the Olympics where somebody already knew there were a couple of them where people already knew they had the gold, but they still had to do their final trial, their final run, their final jump, their final swim. But they already qualified where they knew that they'd have that. And one specifically was the long jump. And as long as she didn't fail, she had the gold just based on the stats and the numbers so far. And she hit it. And the amount of joy. So there's stories like that all the time where you can know there's a result, and man, you can be grateful for that and do all that. But just living in that, when the actual event comes, there's unbounded joy. But think about that. Notice that notice in history, when you've made a positive change that seemed really difficult, that seemed to take a lot of time, you stayed in contemplation and barely planned, and finally got the energy up and got sick enough and tired enough to make a change, that how much of your energy and focus and attention and thoughts and words shifted towards what you did want. And is that the difference? Is that what made the difference of driving the change? Well, you don't have to wait for those moments anymore. You can design them. So what's the point? Where are we at on time? What is the point? I just messed up my screen. That's funny. Okay, let's get to the point. It's not the science. We just spent 18 minutes connecting the idea of gratitude and our thoughts of gratitude into the messaging that we already have. It's not the science. The point's not the science. The point's not the proof. It's not all the people that we've proven this with and that other people have proven this with. It's not any of the programs that we've designed. It's not any of the programs that we offer. It's not in Grateful and Fit Now. It's not in Designing Strengths. It's not in 7 Levels of Freedom. It's not in any of that. This isn't about me. This isn't about my company. It's not about this show. It's you. You are the point. It's your point of awareness. It's your point of epiphany, your aha moments. It's your point of decision. It's the point you plan. It's your point of action. It's your result. It's all the points where you get to experience a desired result. If all you ever do is listen to all of the science and all of the things, there's a big question that comes up. Something else I heard Joe Dispenza say was that faith was a big thing before, but at the time, language allowed for faith and now to be the point, to be the way people look at things and the way people end up believing things. But today, science is much more of a language, and maybe that's true. I do believe science, the idea of science, is more accessible with the internet and everything else. So it's certainly become a bigger part of our language. But what's missing is ownership. What's missing is all of that as well. But you can get there with faith. You can get there with science. You can get there with both. But you're the point. If you don't take these practices and own them for yourself and prove them for yourself, it's not the proof. It's if you take it for proving and make it your own, then you can talk about it and teach it to others because you've owned it and you've claimed it and you've made it yours. None of these things are original to Joe Dispenza, to Dr. Huberman, or any of the other doctors at Stanford, or any of the other universities that are studying it. They may come up with different ways of talking about it, and they may be able to prove things that were anomalies, but the placebo effect has been around for thousands of years, right? So, and that's not to detract or take away from anyone that's doing this. The point is, no one wants you to just use their thing and call it theirs. The desire is that you get to join and partake, and you get to be your own boss, your own leader, your own designer. So that's what happens, right? So here are some of the steps, right? Here's the encouragement about that. If you want to drive change in your life differently, and if you really want to get somewhere, there's one key thing to do, right? And that is to instill a gratitude practice that works for you. Work within the tools of the things that are available to find what really drives you home. And there's things to consider. When I work with a client on this, I go through with you on the idea of how you process information best, what your maybe top 2 or 3 ways of processing are, so that you can practice different ways. We look at your strengths, both from an organic perspective of what you know about your life since you've been living it and the people that have been around you, as well as some science of how to look at strengths. We do a little bit of work on evaluating what your values are, not just what you believe your values are and what you want your values to be, but what your behaviors say about what your values are, what you're valuing in your different behaviors. Because when you have a behavior that you're not proud of or happy with, you might be valuing something in that, and there might be a better way around it, or you might be losing your value, losing the values you have in some other mindset or some other type of automation that you have going on, or some other strategy that you haven't owned, you just learned from someone else because that's what you think is effective based on what you've been taught. All of this is about ownership. So how can you do that? Stop thinking about the past. Stop thinking about the past. You could also replace your thoughts if you find yourself thinking about the past. So either recoil from it, if you don't recoil from it, then instead replace what you're thinking about with the lessons that you're carrying forward today. Replace the feeling, experience, or memory of the problem or the strife or whatever it is you're remembering, and carry that forward. Now, if you remember, the same thing, if you're remembering something positive, carry the lesson of what you learned, that you could repeat that over and over, and think about that, and carry the feeling you want to continue into it, right? But most of the time, we can accurately say if we're thinking about the past, we're bringing it into the future. We're bringing it into the moment. So stop thinking about that. You might say you don't want to stop thinking about it, right? And that is room for a whole nother topic. If you want to dig deeper into why you might want to not stop thinking about it, about the past, let's dig into that. Let me know. I have experience with that, and I've studied that, and that is something that is real for some people. It was for me. And we can totally dig down to some of the whys I had and some of the whys other people have reported to have, and help you find your way and your peace with that. Because as we've talked about, everyone is different. Then get into demonstrating a gratitude practice regularly. So DM me. We're not going to dig deep into that today, but DM me if you want a couple of worksheets or a worksheet that you can get started on to design for yourself that has a full day of routines of how to integrate a gratitude practice into your daily routines so that it's not taking you really any additional time. It's a part of what you already do. And it's just a way of journaling through your day, of managing it through your day. So demonstrate gratitude practice. We're back into the next step, which is managing your thoughts. So if you're going to stop thinking about the past, then start managing your thoughts. Manage them well, right? That is a proper use of self-will, is to really consider what you're thinking on. We can dig into that as well. We can dig deep into that. Another one is, the next one is design the future. And design the future not as a way of being that you do every day. Design the future as a way of, it's an exercise. You sit down and you perform and you revisit maybe every quarter. And maybe for a few months, you do it every month until you have a really good design. But design the future. Design the future you're looking for and what you think God's put in your heart to be great at. And based on all the facts about who you are, what's the real big dream that's bigger than you that you can imagine is meant for you, and start designing that and confirming that and praying on it and meditating and listening. Really design that future. Once you've designed that future, you can let go of it. So the next step is to let go and live in the moment, anchored in your values. Okay, so stop and live in the moment, anchored in your values, and let go of the future. That's the idea. If you've designed it and you have a plan and you have a design for how you're going to move through today, knowing what's that, and you're going to start imprinting with your thoughts, managing your thoughts to be what you want and to have gratitude for these things in this life, then you can start feeling life being easier, and you'll feel yourself being more effective, and you'll find yourself enjoying it. Imagine having enjoyment around all of the steps that you're taking that have felt to you in the past as a struggle. And last but not least, give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to go for the results and to experience and have the results. Allow yourself the grace, allow yourself the permission, figure out what it is to give yourself that gift of allowance to want whatever it is that you want, regardless of what anyone ever says about it. And there's exercises we can work through to that. So these are all things we can break down into deeper topics. Those are 6 clear steps to you finding freedom from anything, any results that you keep repeating that are undesired. If you're on any type of a yo-yo with change or up and down or a roller coaster, if you have any of that language in your life, these are steps you can take. And if you want help with that, there's lots of help. There's lots of support available. There are lots of groups that you can join. We've got designing strengths groups that can help. Reach out and ask for help. There's an entire resource list in Designing Strengths ebook of there's 2 pages, I think, of multiple resources for either crisis management or forward movement type of activities and groups that you can get involved in. There's that. And you can also Google that, AI that, or do anything else if you know what you want. Start looking for the answers. They will be there when you look. It's been an absolute mind rush this week to hear your feedback and to pay attention. There was immediate uptick and discussion on gratitude and the discussions that came in last week, and it's been amazing and humbling. There's been a couple of really cool things that have come in conversations that have kind of awakened me. It was a joy. I took the call to action to go look at some of these things from a place of strength, of where I've listened and found calm when I needed to put something good in my mind without thinking too much. To be able to connect some of those dots so that you can see that, but most of all, to help you understand and help you help you feel, receive, and take in the idea that you're the point, that you are what's important. Marketing and other types of people have asked it before, well, what is it that you do for people? What is it? And it always comes down to the same thing. I can share with you hundreds of tools that I have, hundreds of tools that other coaches have, all the different forms of all the different things that could be put in your lap to help you change. But the point is that you get to choose what you want and what works for you. And the point is to help you figure out how you're wired, uniquely wonderful, and how owning whatever it is that you want to move forward with, owning whatever type of change and whatever type of methodology you want to use is special to you, one that you get to choose. And even if you want to practice something that's not yours, that's foreign to you, so you give up your autonomy for a minute, in a way where you're in managing that, saying, okay, I'm going to practice something uncomfortable for X amount of hours or days or minutes or whatever, that you're at full choice of doing that. That's how you take ownership, and you make your life amazing at being you and touching others' lives. And it's the key to how we can use our free will to allow God to work through us and make beautiful connections we never could have imagined possible without being connected to that eternal flow. So love to all, peace to all. You're an amazing person to serve, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. Please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.